On January 15, 1919, in Boston's North End, a massive storage tank at 509 Commercial Street held 2.3 million gallons of molasses, weighing 13,000 short tons. The structure stood 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter, adjacent to Boston Harbor. The tank belonged to the Purity Distilling Company, which used it to store molasses before transferring it by pipeline to an ethanol plant in Cambridge. The alcohol produced was used in munitions. The tank had been filled only 8 times since its construction in 1915. From the beginning, it leaked so badly that workers painted it brown to hide the seepage. Locals collected the dripping molasses for home use. Arthur Gell, the treasurer of United States Industrial Alcohol Company, oversaw the tank's construction. He had no engineering or architectural experience. He skipped basic safety tests, including filling the tank with water to check for leaks. The steel used in the tank was later found to be half as thick as it should have been, even by 1915 standards. The metal lacked manganese, making it brittle. Rivets were poorly placed, and cracks began forming at their holes. On January 13, 1919, a ship delivered a fresh batch of molasses. It had been warmed to reduce viscosity, making it easier to pump into the tank. This warm molasses mixed with the colder molasses already inside. Temperatures rose sharply over the next 2 days, from 2 degrees Fahrenheit to 41 degrees Fahrenheit. The warmer molasses expanded, increasing internal pressure. Fermentation in the tank may have produced carbon dioxide, further raising pressure. On January 15 at approximately 12:30 p.m., the tank ruptured near its base. Witnesses heard a thunderclap like bang, a deep growling, or a sound like a machine gun as rivets shot out. The clacks released a wave of molasses 25 feet high, moving at 35 miles per hour. The fluid, 40% denser than water, carried enormous potential energy. It surged through the streets with devastating force. Steel panels from the tank flew into the girders of the Boston Elevated Railway. One panel struck the Atlantic Avenue structure, while another tipped a streetcar off its tracks. Buildings were swept off their foundations and crushed. Several blocks were flooded with syrup 2 to 3 feet deep. The wave caused widespread destruction. Stephen Palaio described how the wave moved with unexpected speed. As a non-Newtonian fluid, molasses thinned under pressure, flowing rapidly at first before thickening as it cooled. A 2013 Scientific American article noted that a molasses wave behaves unlike water. Initially fast and destructive, it quickly becomes gelatinous, trapping victims. The Boston Globe reported that people were lifted by a rush of air and thrown many feet. Debris flew through the sweet-smelling wind. One truck was hurled into the harbor. Anthony DiStasio, a boy walking home from school with his sisters, was caught in the wave. He was lifted and carried like a surfer, then rolled as the syrup slowed. He grounded in the syrup, unable to speak as his throat filled with molasses. He passed out, then woke to see 3 of his sisters staring down at him. Horses drowned in the sticky mass. The Boston Post described how they struggled like flies on flypaper. The more they moved, the deeper they sank. People, too, were ensnared. Forms thrashed beneath the surface, indistinguishable from animals. Only movement revealed where life remained. The air filled with coughing. Many survivors suffered respiratory distress from inhaling the thick fluid. Dogs and other animals were among the injured. 116 cadets from the Massachusetts Nautical School arrived first, led by Lieutenant Commander H.J. Copeland. They ran from the USS Nantucket, docked nearby. The cadets entered knee-deep molasses, pulling survivors from the flood. Others kept onlookers back, clearing space for rescue efforts. Boston police, Red Cross nurses, and military personnel arrived soon after. Some nurses waded into the molasses to tend to the injured. Doctors set up a makeshift hospital in a nearby building. The injured were so numerous that care continued through the night. Rescuers struggled to move through the thick syrup. 4 days passed before they stopped searching. Many victims were coated so completely that identification was difficult. Some victims were swept into Boston Harbor. Their bodies were recovered months later, far from the disaster site. 119 residents filed a class action lawsuit against United States Industrial Alcohol Company. It was one of the first such suits in Massachusetts. USIA claimed anarchists had bombed the tank since the alcohol was used in munitions. But a court-appointed auditor, Hugh W. Ogden, investigated for 3 years. Ogden concluded the tank was poorly built and improperly maintained. He found USIA responsible. The company paid $6,000 to $28,000 in damages, equivalent to $11.7 million in 2025. Families of the deceased received about $7,000 per victim, or $130,000 in today's money. 21 people died, and 150 were injured. Cleanup began immediately. Crews used salt water from a fireboat to wash away molasses. Sand was spread to absorb the syrup. The harbor remained brown with molasses until summer. The immediate area took weeks to clean. Hundreds of people joined the cleanup, Molasses spread far beyond the site, tracked into subway platforms, trains, homes, and telephone booths. It was said that everything a Bostonian touched became sticky. The smell of molasses lingered for decades, especially on hot summer days. A 2014 engineering study found the steel too thin and brittle. Cracks likely started at flawed rivet holes and grew with each filling cycle. In 2016, Harvard researchers studied the disaster using old maps, weather reports, and newspaper accounts. They tested cold corn syrup and a scale model of the neighborhood. They confirmed the wave moved fast at first, then cooled and thickened rapidly in Boston's winter air. This trapped victims before they could escape. The tank was never rebuilt. The land became a yard for the Boston Elevated Railway, later part of the MBTA. Today, the site is Langone Park, with a Little League field, playground, and boxing courts. The tank's concrete base remains 20 inches below the baseball diamond. East of Langone Park is Popolo Park. A small plaque at its entrance, placed by the Bostonian Society, commemorates the disaster. It states that structural defects and unseasonably warm temperatures caused the tank to explode, killing 21 and inundating the neighborhood. On January 15, 2019, the 100th anniversary was marked with the ceremony. Ground-penetrating radar located the tank's exact footprint. Attendees stood where the tank once stood. The names of the 21 who died were read aloud. The disaster led to new construction laws. Requirements were established for oversight by licensed engineers and architects. The flood became part of Boston's culture. Its strange mix of tragedy and sweetness made it unforgettable. The Darkest of the Hillside Thickets wrote a song about it. Their video includes real photos from the aftermath. Protest, the hero's song, All Hanses, is from a victim's perspective. The piano interlude, Harborside, references the storage tanks. Orrin Tarshish wrote, I Survived the Great Molasses Flood, 1019, a children's book, from a 12-year-old girl's point of view. Comedian Io Edeberry spoke about the flood on Late Night with Seth Meyers, saying it moved her to tears. In 2025, a card game called Molassacre, Escape the Flood, was announced, inspired by the mid-20th century game Millborns. Edwards Park wrote in 1983 that the smell of molasses remained a distinctive atmosphere of Boston for decades. The tank's failure began at a manhole cover near the base. A fatigue crack grew until it could no longer hold. The company ignored warnings. Each time the tank filled, it groaned. Workers and neighbors heard the noise but took no action. The wave caused widespread destruction, sweeping away buildings and flooding streets. Rescue efforts were hampered by the syrup's changing viscosity. It flowed fast at first, then trapped people in a thick, slow-moving mass. The Harvard study confirmed that the warm molasses added 2 days before contributed to pressure buildup. The rapid temperature rise played a key role. The disaster highlighted the dangers of poor industrial safety practices. Some authors suggest the company was rushing production as prohibition approached.